Ken Whiting with Paddle TV with yet another in-depth, unbiased gear review. And in this video, I am getting to test a boat that I have really been looking forward to trying. This is the Melker Rodloga. Ooh, that sounds good. The Melker Rodloga. So I've been paddling for over 30 years, and as many kayaks as I've tried over those years, I don't do double takes very often anymore. But this kayak made me do a double take, and there's a couple of reasons for that. For one, I mean, look at it. It has a very distinctive style. It's a beautiful looking kayak. But the second reason I really did a double take with this kayak is because of how it was made. Now, the guy that started Melker, he doesn't come initially from the paddle sports industry. He's an engineer that comes from very different industries. When he decided to enter the paddle sports industry around 2015 or so, he brought all these different ideas from different industries, and with the idea of creating kayaks that adopted these ideas. And one of the biggest ideas, and their mission, is to produce environmentally friendly or even sustainable kayaks. And so this cool patterning you see on the top of this kayak it's not just a cool look. What it is instead of carbon and Kevlar weave, they've developed, or they use a locally sourced flax weave in its place. And so more environmentally friendly, but also really unique and cool looking. But it doesn't matter how cool looking or environmentally friendly a boat is if it's not gonna get used, if it doesn't perform well and people aren't gonna buy it. I gotta get this thing on the water, give it a good test, see how well it actually performs. But before I do, let me tell you a bit more about the Rodloga. The Rodloga, love it. The Melker Rodloga has a retail price of $3,900 US. It comes in a low and a high volume version. I've got the high volume version. The high volume version has a length of 16 feet 7 inches. It's 21¼ inches wide. It weighs 54 pounds or 24 kilos. And it's ideally suited for paddlers between 175 and 230 pounds. Its primary use is all conditions. The Rodloga features a skeg and a rudder, even though the version I've got right here actually has both. It has aggressive thigh braces, an adjustable ergonomic padded seat, 4 hatches, a recessed area between the bow hatches for storing a pump, a water bottle, even an extra paddle, and it has 190 liters of storage space. Well, enough oogling over this kayak. It's time to put some scratches in this thing. Man, I love putting the first few scratches on a sweet looking boat. Well, if you're gonna test a boat that's supposed to be for all conditions, I mean, you might as well test the boat in all conditions. Here we go. All right, so let me tell you what I think about the Rodloga. And let's start with portability, like I always do, and there's not too much to talk about. This is a 16.5 foot long kayak, but it is worth noting that it's only 54 pounds. That is really good for a 16.5 foot kayak. I found it very easy to throw it on my shoulder and move around. As a 2 people moving around, no problem. Something to just know when you get a kayak like this, when you're transporting it on your vehicle, you want to have pads on your rack. You want to have a padded place to store it at home. This is a kayak that deserves some love. So, and the places you can do the most damage is often transporting it. So there you go. But paddling, how did it paddle? Well, let's start with stability. It's 21.25 inches wide. That is a narrow kayak. It's a very narrow kayak. Not the narrowest kayak, but when a kayak is that narrow, you know it's designed for speed. And that's what you get with this kayak. You get a fast kayak, but that's definitely not the only thing you get with this kayak. The hull of this thing is quite flat through the whole center part of this boat. And then it's got a hard chine, a hard edge to the sidewalls. And so for a 21-inch kayak, what that means, that flat surface, it has surprisingly good stability. It's not one of those kayaks where you put your paddle down and you're like, oh, you're feeling a little unsteady. It's not like that at all. It actually feels like, okay, I'm just comfortable. But also it's so narrow and it just rolls on from one edge to the other beautifully and drops into its secondary stability, its stability on edge. And this thing has great, for a 21-inch kayak, this thing has great secondary stability as well. All in all, for a 21-inch kayak, a kayak that isn't designed for stability, it does have some good stability. Now, usually stability comes at the cost of performance. And so let's talk about that. Does it come at the cost of performance? Well, the answer to that is maybe a little. You do get maybe a little reduction in speed, but I don't really think it's because of the stability of this boat. I think it's because this boat is designed for all conditions. This is their play boat version, their play touring kayak or sea kayak. It's got a lot of rocker or curvature from bow to stern. I mean, not a lot, but quite a bit. And that makes it very maneuverable, which I'll talk about in a second. It allows it to do all sorts of different paddling. And that's why I was really eager to take this kayak into rough conditions to see how it dealt with that. You lose a little bit of top end speed when you have a kayak with that much rocker. But for me, this is my type of kayak. I love a playful kayak. I don't mind giving up a little bit of top end speed for something that's more playful, more versatile. I can take into whitewater. And you know, the reason I took it into a whitewater rapid was to really test how it did in rough water in general. So most people aren't going to do that, but a lot of people who get this boat may really push its limit in open water, rough open water, ocean surf, rock gardens, just rough ocean exposed conditions, whether a big lake or the ocean itself. It performed wonderful. You know, because it's easy to turn, relatively speaking, for a 16.5-foot kayak, and it's stable, but it also has speed. The combination that this kayak has, it made it a really fun and comforting boat to take into those types of conditions. Absolutely, for me, 2 thumbs up for performance in the rough stuff. On flat water, I loved it too. It really is an all-round boat. I am really impressed. I kind of felt like, hey, this is one of their first kayaks. And there's obviously a lot of attention that's put into its looks, its curb appeal, and the engineering behind its build. But how about, did that come at the cost of some design and some performance? I'm happy to say it didn't. This was a really, really, really fun kayak to paddle. Building on performance, I mentioned maneuverability and how easy this kayak is to turn for a boat of this length. I was really surprised how easy this boat is to turn. When you put this boat on edge, it wants to turn. And that for me is fantastic, super fun. You can carve a surprising turn with this kayak. When you drop though the skeg down, it really does lock it into place nicely. It tracks so much better, and that's what skegs do. So no big surprise there. But once again, it says, hey, this is an all conditions, all performance boat. So two thumbs up for stability and performance. Now let's talk comfort. I am 6'2", 195 pounds. I've got about 34-inch inseam, and I had plenty of room in this kayak. My feet are size 10, that's another good thing to note. I didn't have a ton of foot room. There's a lot more length in this kayak for me, but it's only 21 inches wide, you know? And so there's no real way to make a 21-inch wide kayak have more foot room. It's just not possible. And just something to know, it's a slow taper. And so if you're a little taller than I am, you'd still fit your feet in pretty well. But if you have big old flippers for feet, if you're a size 13 and up and you're taller than me, you're gonna start to get a little pinched in here. You know, that being said, the weight limit on this thing, they say the ideal weight limit is 175 to 230 pounds. So if you get too much, if you have big feet and you get too much taller, bigger than I am, you're quickly going to be over the ideal weight limit, and it's probably not the right boat for you anyway. But anyway, that's a good thing to know about the feet. Now, the cockpit area itself, it's a very simple cockpit area. You've got a contoured seat pan with a thin foam pad on it. You've got some nice aggressive thigh hooks with pads that come with it, where you position those pads, stick them on yourself, which is nice. There's nothing I hate more than getting into a kayak that the pads have already been applied, but they're just not in the right place for my length of legs. Yeah, I'd say it's a 5-minute pain in the butt to apply the pads where you want them, but I think that's really valuable for a kayak like this. But otherwise, very simple. The back band is not adjustable on this thing, so you can't tighten it up, you can't change it. You can move the position of the seat to trim the kayak differently, but that's about it. Doesn't come with hip pads. Now that I didn't find that a problem at all, because my butt just actually fit in this thing really well. It's like, hey, wow, this thing was made for my butt. Awesome. But if you're bigger boned than I am, if you have a bigger butt than I do, you might end up feeling a little pinched in here. I don't have a tiny butt, so I think it can accommodate a wide range of paddlers. You know, it is a fairly simple but nicely contoured seat and simple cockpit, but sometimes simple is good. And in this case, for me, simple was perfectly adequate. So now let's talk value. This thing retails for $3,900 US. That's a chunk of change. That's a chunk of change for anyone, but that is what you kind of have to expect for a composite sea kayak of this nature. It's going to cost somewhere between $3,000 and $6,000 US. So $3,900, around $4,000 US, is very much in range. The fact that it looks so good, it performs so well, and it has the whole environmentally friendly aspect to it. You often expect to pay a little premium for that. I don't feel like you're paying a premium for that at all. I feel like that's just baked in. It's just this huge bonus, and that's awesome. So value, I think it's a very solid value. I wouldn't expect to get this thing for anything less. But so that brings the next question up, which is, who is this for? Who should be considering this? Obviously, right off the top, it's $3,900. So the only people that can afford $3,900 for a toy, a fun, cool-looking, environmentally friendly toy, but a toy nonetheless, it's for people who can afford it. But on top of that, this particular kayak, the Rodloga, is for someone who wants a playful kayak, who likes the idea of being able to go in any conditions. You don't need to be a hardcore paddler to hop in this thing and challenge rough conditions. I would say most people that are going to get this kayak are going to stick to calm water. But if you ever do deal with rough water, or you progress as a paddler and want to challenge yourself in rougher conditions, you can do it all with this boat, which is awesome, because this is, in my opinion, this is one of those lifetime kayaks. This is a kayak that you get, and you don't just get for the next, I'll get this for the next 3 years and sell it. For me, it's like, I'm getting this kayak and I love it. I'm probably gonna have this probably for a lifetime. And so the fact that you can grow into it as a paddler is amazing. As stable as it is for 21 inches, it's not a stable kayak in the big picture of things compared to recreational kayaks or rec touring kayaks. And so some beginners, adventuresome beginners, can use this boat for sure. but it is going to be a bit more geared towards people with experience, people who have gone paddling. They know what they want out of a kayak. You don't have to have a lot of experience. I mean, I'm not talking about highly experienced people only. I'm just talking about people that have already tried a kayak or two and say, hey, you know what? I'm ready to take a kayak that has more performance and gives up some stability for that. So there you have it. My full breakdown of the Melker Rodloga. That's not gonna get old anytime soon. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I certainly enjoyed testing this boat. I'm really glad I got to test this boat in some of the rough water here on the Ottawa River. I can't wait to get this into some more conditions. I'm definitely going to be taking it out, but I'm also really looking forward to trying one of their other kayaks. Melker's got a number of models, and the other kayak that I am going to be testing very soon is the Ulvan, which is a very different type of kayak. It's a bit longer, it's about a foot longer, around 17.5 feet. It's got way less rocker, almost no rocker. It's designed for speed, a very different paddling experience. I can't wait to try that one because this one really was fun. If you have any experience in this kayak, share your experience down below. And that'll be mostly for folks in Europe because this is the first one in Kayak, Melker Kayak in Canada. There's only a handful, there's one container full right now that has arrived in the US. So if you want one of them, you can be one of the first in North America to have one right now. I'll leave a link to the Melker website down below. That's where you're gonna get it. It's reach out to them. Otherwise, give the video a thumbs up if you like this. Subscribe to Paddle TV if you haven't already, and we'll see you soon for another paddling tip, gear review, or paddling adventure.